Welcome to Power of the Tribe podcast. I'm your host, John Connors. I'm here with my co-host, Dan Robin. How you doing, Dan?
Good, John. I'd say a solid 7 out of 10.
Excellent.
How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm probably 7.8. Yeah, I feel pretty good. Yeah, I feel real good.
What's got you? I can tell you're in a good mood today. Did you have a good session on the mats, or?
Yeah, I've been training hard and trying to eat healthier. I text Dan my body weight on a regular basis. He doesn't text back.
Well, I can't now.
But
I used to text back.
It does help me when I send you that, because if I get an ugly looking number, and then I can go back, I can say, oh, what was I last Monday? And I can look at that and I go, oh, it's not great, but it's a half pound less than last Monday.
All right, so starting next week, it's September, I'm in.
That's when you're in. You're back.
I'm probably 10 pounds heavier than you right now, if I had to estimate.
I weighed this morning, so I just weigh in the morning, and that's what I consider my weight, 183.4. So you think you might be 10 above that?
Roughly. Maybe a little less, but I'm probably in the 190s. So, and I want to get to like 170s. So
that's where you were, right?
Yeah. So it's a little bit of work.
No, part of your problem is?
What's that?
You don't really look much different. You know what I mean? You look you're fit. I'm like, that's harder, right?
I know. Well, well, it's good when you're fat, like right now, to look like pretty fit.
No, it's good
but
about
then
jiu-jitsu.
It's frustrating to get like I lost 15, 20 pounds and be like, you don't look any different.
No, it's good about jiu-jitsu. If you wear like training no-gi and you got nice no-gi shorts on and a nice tight no-gi rash guard, it doesn't hide anything.
It's unforgiving.
It's unforgiving. So if you get a little bit of belly fat, you're like, there it is, man. God damn it.
I said I knew that like I passed, like I lost a level of fitness when I'd be rolling and like say no gi and like your shirt comes up.
That's
not good, but
right?
if I subconsciously kind of like pull it like in the middle of a roll, sort of like tuck it back
Start
down.
pulling it down, yeah.
It means that I like know that I don't want my belly showing.
Oh, right.
Where if I'm like if I'm like really at my most fit, I'm like, my shirt can come up. Who cares?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, because you got your
if
six
there's
pack.
If there's no
abs.
fat, yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, if you get the 6-pack, then shirt can come up.
Right. Then you do all your Instagram pictures without
if you're
your shirt
going,
on.
okay, I'm like just kind of pulling it back
and you have
down.
You have your shorts hang low to have the little root showing, you know. I hate that picture. I don't know what happened. It's a society where men are wearing their pants low. It's the most disturbing trend. Hate it.
You're not going to start doing that?
No.
You're going to get low hanging.
I don't do that, Dan, and I don't wear baseball caps on backwards. I mean, if you're not catching a baseball game and you're over 40, you should not be wearing your hat backwards. I don't know.
All right, so pass to anyone under 40.
Say what?
A pass to anyone under 40.
Yeah. They're trying to figure out what's going on. Yeah,
right.
It's fine. Still not a big fan of it, but yeah. That guy, what's his name? Greg Glassman, the founder of CrossFit. I think he was in his 60s, and that dummy, he'd always have his hat on backwards. He dressed like a frat boy, and he's like in his 60s. He's worth, who knows, $100 million.
Yeah, it's whatever he's done.
Then he tweeted some stupid stuff, and he had to sell CrossFit.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
What a dummy. It just goes to show you he had that guru energy where he had utter conviction in anything he was doing and believed in. And he created a huge fitness craze, a huge company, successful, profitable company.
Yeah, I'm sure it's sort of like not a sad story that he had to sell it too. I mean, I'm sure he's sold it with $100 million, right? Like I'm
sure he's doing pretty goddamn good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? He doesn't even look that fit either. So it's not even he's not even into it. But he just has pure conviction. He speaks with conviction. We got to start
thought
speaking
he'd be
with
like
more
super
conviction.
fit. I don't know what he looks like. I can't remember.
He looks like an idiot. He's short. He's got a pot belly and hat on backwards and dresses like a frat boy.
So that's pretty impressive. He sold the whole nation on this, and he's like, well, I'm not doing it. Is that basically what happened? It was like, well, I'm not doing that. That's too hard. But you should all do it.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's the power of speaking with conviction. I always thought that Bikram guy who did all the yoga, he always looked like a little chubby guy too. And he was so delusional. He'd be like, look at this body. You know, he got accused of all these sexual shenanigans and harassment and everything. And he was like, look at me. What woman wouldn't want to be with me? He's just a maniac.
Well, again, I think if you talk that way, there's certain women who are like, I guess he's really good looking. Like, they just fall into it. Not all of them, not everyone.
I think you're right,
But
Dan.
there's like
something
a
to
small, there's a segment that are like, he's just talking so arrogantly. There must be something to it.
They're like, I must be not getting him at the right angle. It doesn't
Maybe
occur
the
to them.
light-
They
the
could be
lighting
just
is
a
off.
maniac and just a compulsive liar and just delusional. They're like, yeah.
Is the lighting off? Yeah, like, yeah. Or the other strategy of just surround yourself with beautiful women, and then it's like, oh, I guess.
Well,
he
we
must
talked
be,
about
must
that.
be good looking.
Yeah, with Osho too. Like
Yeah.
once you have a certain number of followers, and then it's like dominoes falling, and then you just get a bunch of other people that start falling for you, falling in line. And yeah, you're on your way. You're on your way to guru status. I think. What do you think about this, Dan? I might try to make myself the anti-guru guru. In other words, criticize all the other gurus and actually use their guru techniques against them to criticize them. What do you think? Could I make that work? Could that be
It
something?
can work. Yeah, it's a fine line though to criticize and at the same time be using those exact techniques.
Right. It seems a little hypocritical.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, most people don't notice that stuff.
They don't.
Think.
And hypocrisy is not a big thing anymore. People
Yeah.
don't care about it, right? They just let it go, roll right over them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just prepare yourself for the accusations. Get some pat answers down.
Or not care
That'd be good,
or whatever. Yeah.
Shrug it off.
So, Dan, I noticed you prepared some notes today for this podcast.
I
episode.
did because I was just watching. I think it was like one of these Facebook videos that
Okay.
popped up, and it was called "The Unwritten Rules of Jiu Jitsu."
The unwritten rules of Jiu Jitsu. Did you write them down?
Yeah, now they're written. So I've kind of they are actually
You
written.
kind of ruined it. Now they're written down.
But it made me think that maybe it's, I don't know, I think especially newer students, but maybe people that have been around it might be harder to learn unwritten rules.
All right.
Because no one just tells you what you're supposed to do,
Right.
Like
you
come
can't
in,
read them.
right. They're not readable.
Yeah.
I think some things you come in and they're like, you no shoes on the mat. It's real easy, right? Like,
Right.
but then like this is supposed to be kind of
Some common sense. Yeah.
common sense. And then there's supposed to be like social norms in jiu-jitsu gyms.
By the way, Dan, did you watch any of that TV show, that Netflix series called Kingdom?
It's crazy that we never talked. I just started.
Just started.
I'm like 3 episodes in.
So it's for people who haven't watched it, it's based in an MMA gym in Southern California, I guess, right? Yeah. But
I
the
can't
guy,
believe I haven't seen it, by the way. Like it's
Yeah.
sort of, it's got, so every episode you usually see some MMA fighter makes
Right.
a cameo, right? Like
right?
I noticed in that first episode, it was,
Joe Stevenson.
Joe Stevenson
Chris
is like
Lieben.
a recurring character.
Yeah.
Lieben's
Yeah.
supposed to be a guy in the gym. And
I
then,
think Kenny Florian's in several episodes.
I missed it.
Yeah. Joseph Benavidez is
I
there.
thought I spotted Kenny's wife as one of the, but I'm not positive about
I
that.
don't know what's her name. I'm not
forgot,
familiar with her. Yeah, but I know Kenny's in it a lot actually, playing himself.
Oh,
an
not yet, because
announcer.
I've only seen a few episodes.
But the guy who runs the gym, Alvi Kalina,
Yeah.
I think that's his name. Sometimes he's wearing shoes. I'm like, why is he wearing shoes? It drives me crazy. And they might be wrestling shoes or boxing shoes, but he's wearing shoes a lot. And I'm like, this is MMA. Shouldn't he be
I've
barefoot?
been meaning to talk to you about this series because I also thought, like they get some things right, like the way
Yep.
the gym looks and
They
some
do.
of the things they say.
Yeah,
Get some
they get
things
some of
right.
the themes right, and then there's some great like monologues or a little bit of a dialogue. There's certain scenes that are really well written, and they're philosophical and pretty cool. Yeah,
Right. Other times I feel like they're missing a little bit. Like
yeah,
it's sort of like
they're off.
I just
yeah.
get like he'll walk in, the gym owner, and there's people doing kind of stuff all over the place, and he's like nonstop walking, being like, "Keep your left up there," and like, "Hey, watch the triangle there." Like as he walks through, like, and I'm like, that's sort of not really what
Right.
happens. Like,
then Dan, he
that's
says,
not really.
breathe and relax far too often.
Yeah.
It gets pretty annoying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Breathe. Just relax, 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 relax. Breathe, breathe. It's,
So a few things seem to miss a little bit, but like,
one of the opening scenes totally missed for me. So you saw the first episode?
Yeah.
So he's walking down the street, and these two gangbangers like accost him,
Yeah.
and they pull out like handguns,
Yeah.
And he just calmly knocks them both unconscious and jogs away. I'm like,
Yeah, and
that's
doesn't
a
like.
little unrealistic. I don't know.
I know, and like doesn't go back to the gym. Like, holy crap! Like a guy pulled a gun on me.
Yeah.
And like he's just like. I guess the idea is he's so badass that it
That's
just meant nothing to him.
That's it.
Like isn't that what you do, John? Like
Yeah.
you just like just knock them both out and
Well,
just
once a month that happens to me. Yeah.
You just go for finish your run, like not mention it to anybody. But like, oh, did that happen? I forgot completely about it.
Yeah. So some of it's right on the nose, excellent, and some of it is a little goofy. And then ultimately, it's just a soap opera. There's all kinds of romance and shenanigans going on. So,
but if you know your fighters, like, so the kid fought in the first episode, and his opponent is like, that's Cub Swanson, right? Like,
was it Cub Swanson?
Yeah, it was Cub Swanson. So you're like, it's fun for people that know their MMA, you know, to just spot people they recognize throughout the series. Because I think they want fighters. It's hard. It looks awfully stupid if you get non-fighters.
They manage with the real fighters and with good editing. The fights look fairly realistic that they have. They do a really good job, I think. At
like
that.
a smidgen off, right? But like
like the actors don't really.
Fair enough. What do you? So I mean,
the actors don't really know
look
how to
a little
fight.
off
Yeah.
too, right? Like so.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like you can see, like there's the one guy that came out of prison. He's supposed to be this killer, this badass, and you can tell the way he moves that he's really not a fighter. So that's a little, you know, you got to suspend your belief a little bit for that, right? And he's been gone for 5 years, and he's going to step right back in and compete and be successful immediately. I don't think that's too realistic, right? 5 years in MMA is a long time.
Yeah.
Real long time, right?
Yeah, but I'm just surprised we haven't ever even, like, we spent whole podcast talking about things we're watching, and I somehow missed this show.
Yeah.
I would think all the gym guys have watched
I can only watch one episode at a time, Dan.
Yeah.
Because
I'm like that
because of the anxiety and everything, it drives me crazy because it's like drug-addicted mother, and like there's all this weird shit happening all the time that I'm like, I can only take a little of this at a time. And then I know what I flip over to is Norsemen.
Yeah, you said you liked that show.
I
watched
show.
it a while ago though, so my memory's kind of.
Dimitri, ever seen that show? So it's a Netflix produced show, so it's high production value, and it's like Vikings, the old time Viking era, and it looks really cool. All the people look super authentic, and they're doing Viking things. They're out raping and pillaging, but when the characters talk, they have like the current modern,
it's in the
neurotic
end,
effect. They're like, all this raping and pillaging is fulfilling, but now I'm gonna go home. I don't have anyone to go home to. Like, so the guys are real like overly emotional, and they're discussing their feelings and everything after they just like smash.
And in the end,
somebody's
just to be
skull in.
clear, it's like a goofball comedy.
It's total goofball comedy. Yeah, but I don't know. I get a kick out of that. It's kind of like they're taking these savage men and they're juxtaposing them with like these
modern.
the modern metrosexual kind of man today who's like trying to get in touch with his feelings all the time and all that silliness. Yeah. Pretty funny.
Also, did your microphone get quieter?
Did my microphone get quieter?
I don't know.
I don't
Maybe
know.
just up my volume, Dimitri. Just so.
All right.
Okay.
So let's get back to the list.
The unspoken rules.
Go ahead.
And everyone, this will be familiar for anyone that's
All right.
been around the gym for a while.
I'm going to give my most attitude-laden, strong opinion.
Okay.
I'm going to be as guru-esque as possible.
So one is this unspoken rule. No one ever says this out loud, what you should do. And maybe people are curious. And it's,
all right.
Is this an unspoken rule?
All right.
Don't ever ask for a promotion. And that it would include ask when am I going to get my blue belt? When am I going to get a stripe? This kind of stuff.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think you should ever ask that.
I sort of agree with that. I think you could ask what you should be working on, maybe. Like what things do you think I could work on? Where do you think
you should be focused on your development. That's it. And if you keep developing, sooner or later, I always wanted to be in the position where it's becoming awkward that I'm not promoted. You know what I mean? You want to be that blue belt that's just smashing not only the blue belts, but now you're smashing the purple belts and giving the brown belts a hard time. So it gets to the point where people are going up to the instructor and say, are we going to promote this guy because he's making us all look bad? Which they shouldn't anyways. Yeah. But that's how I would approach it. But everybody's different. Some people are too focused on getting their belt. I think everyone should just focus on their development. You know, yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I had 2 students, a black belt and a white belt, training with each other. And they were just going hard at each other. And it was awesome because there was no reference to the belts. There was no like, oh, you're a black belt, I'm only a white belt, or any of that nonsense. They were just both trying to get better and develop themselves and help each other develop. And that's how it should be. You know, that's how we should all be approaching it.
And I think sometimes people don't understand your point of view, the point of view of the person, the instructor, which is, so you have over 100, you know, how many people's belts are you keeping track of? 100 and...
No, over 200.
Over 200,
yeah.
Right?
Back
plus your mindset.
Pre-corona.
Plus your mindset is, like you said, like everyone should just be focusing on their development. So you're not like obsessing over the belt level of every student.
No.
So the facts
You know
are,
what, Dan, the honest answer is sometimes I forget what belt they are.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I've heard you say that. You're like, oh, you know, like I didn't realize.
Sometimes they're
belt,
like, I think that guy needs his purple belt. And they're like, yeah, you promoted him 6 months ago. I go, oh, right. Well, there you go.
But it could happen in the reverse, right? I'm sure there are times where someone should have been promoted 6 months ago and you're like, yeah, well, okay, I'll do it. You know what I mean? Like, or they're sort of they come in sometimes night, sometimes morning, and like they're seeing different instructors and you're sort of not sure. Right. You sort of felt like one of the other instructors is kind of watching them. Or, you know what I mean? Like it's sort of like, so
if you focus on your development enough, you're going to go where you need to go, and your belt, the belt has to come. So,
and so say worst case scenario is something like that. Like you go 6 months past when you should have been, whatever should have means, when you could have been promoted, and you go 6 months. If you're on this sort of longer journey,
that's it.
Then maybe the next belt, it'll come 6 months faster. Like, you know what I mean? Like you'll get there. It's not meaningful. Like the lag in the promotion, especially for like a stripe, it's just not meaningful. I
totally agree. And
haven't you sometimes also been like, we're just going to give you 2 stripes now? Like, I think I've seen like, because you're kind of behind. And so you'll catch up.
At some point, I don't even like giving stripes, to be honest with you. I don't mind white belt and blue belt, but they kind of feel like training wheels to me. When somebody gets to purple and brown, I'm kind of like, just develop yourself and you'll get to the next belt. Do you really need me to make this into 5 bite-sized pieces for you? You're not man enough to just develop yourself.
Right. The stripes almost seems to me like one of the devices for the kids. There didn't used to be stripes, by the way. When I started, no one had stripes that I knew, right? And then but then I get it for like white or blue belt, like it's frustrating, or you want some positive feedback. So I get it, but I'm with you. I would almost say I could see not having the stripes for higher belts.
So Dan, I was training with a guy the other day. So it was him and me basically one-on-one, and we were rolling hard. And then when he would make some kind of major mistake, I would show him the mistake. We would stop the training and we'd go over. So what happened? How did I get your back? You know, I would encourage him to sort of analyze the mistake. And if he couldn't figure it out, then I would give him the answer. And toward the end of the session, he goes, "Is there anything I'm doing right?" And I'm like, "No, you're doing a lot of things right. Your passing is strong. Your movement is good. But you really get better when you remove your largest mistakes from your game." That's, and you know, it could be something like, don't let the guy get the underhook in that situation. And if that's and then, so that's something very easy to learn. It's like, I'm just never letting that guy have that underhook. And then when you do that, so you can implement it, you can quote unquote master it almost immediately. And then you're better already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I didn't know if I discouraged him by like, I thought I was doing a great job. I think I did a great job of teaching him, but he kind of had that, he looked a little put off, and he was like, "Am I doing anything right?" And I'm like, "No, you're doing a lot of good stuff, but it's more important about, you know, sort of plugging the holes in the boat here. If we plug all these holes, you're going to be in a much better situation, you know?"
Right. And tangentially related to this is, you know, we've talked before about the bad side of having belts at all, right? Where like everyone's just trying to improve, but if you're a purple belt and a blue belt taps you, you could feel miserable, but it really shouldn't be, right? It should be like,
That's a great point.
You know what I
Dan.
mean? It's sort of like, what did I do wrong? It doesn't matter if he was a blue belt or a black belt that tapped me. What
Dan,
did you do
totally
wrong?
agree. Yeah, exactly. Let's depersonalize it. Let's look at this technically. You know how I used to have the academy where guys would just come in and they'd say, "Hey, John." They didn't call me coach. They didn't call me professor. And we didn't bow to each other. We just came in and we tried to get better at jiu-jitsu, right?
Right.
And I was going along that way for a while. And then it came the custom among jiu-jitsu players that the head of the academy was called professor. And then it was hard, but I reluctantly realized that if I don't call myself professor and all my competitors are calling themselves professors, new students might get misled. They might think, well, he's not even a professor. These guys over here are professors.
Right.
So I'm like, I kind of have to keep up and use that terminology, or the it might hurt the academy. So I sort of reluctantly did that. So now people call me professor. But if they call me John or coach, I don't have any problem with that. And then we started, some of the other stuff started to influence us. So, Dan, at the end of class, we would line up by rank, and we would bow, and then we would all shake hands. And that was a great thing. But you know what? I'm throwing that out. When we get back to regular training, we're not lining up according to rank. The hell with that. Like, all that rank stuff, it's just a big distraction. I'm going back to my grassroots, Dan. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well,
going back to my real
think of the
principles
model
and values.
like a wrestling gym, right? Like a wrestling practice. Like they're not like belted, you know, like people that are good, they're all working on it, and there's no distraction about what belt anyone has.
Right.
And they're all getting really good at wrestling, you know. It can be an Olympic level gym, and they're just not bothering about who's
right.
You know, you sort of know who's good.
And these are artificial distinctions anyways. You know, I hate when somebody's like, this blue belt in the tournament, he beat a purple belt. Or I'm like, well, maybe he shouldn't be a blue belt then. You know what I mean? It's just weird.
Well, I thought of that too, where you also, like when we were talking earlier, you could be like, I'm purple belt. I'm really discouraged. I got triangled by a blue belt. I wouldn't be as discouraged if it was a black belt, but it was a blue belt. And it might be like, well, that blue belt's triangle was as good as a black belt. So, like, do you know what I mean? He's really, really good at the triangle.
Just try to figure out.
He just doesn't have some of the other things that a black belt might have.
Yeah, let's just figure out how to defend the triangle. Don't worry about who's doing it to you as much. Yeah, definitely. So I'm going back to those grassroots, Dan. And one of the new students asked me about bowing. I said, if you want to bow when you step on the mat because you're bowing to the academy, like, that's probably a good idea. Showing respect for the space. So, like, this is kind of a sacred space in a way where we're going to come in here to develop ourselves, help each other. We're not going to disrespect each other. You know what I mean? That's probably not a bad idea. But you don't necessarily have to bow to me or anything like this, you know? So I think I'm going to move back to that more informal take on things. You know what I mean?
And so what do you think? So here's another.
I used to always tell people, Dan, sorry to interrupt you. Show up late, leave early, it doesn't matter. Some training is better than no training. So some places have, if you're late, you have to wait at the edge of the mat for the instructor to give you permission to come on. I think that's ridiculous in today's day and age. And like, we're all adults and everybody's juggling kids and maybe career or whatever. So just get in here whenever you can and just be courteous and considerate. That's all.
And it's not like when you're training adults, you're not like, we're trying to show you life skills and discipline and promptness. You know what I mean? It's like you're already an adult. Like, it's not, that sounds again more like something you want to.
If somebody routinely comes in late and they miss the instruction and then they go, so now what are we doing? And I'm like, so now I have to
disrupting me,
give a whole extra presentation for you personally because you came in late. And I don't I'm like, figure it out, you know?
Yeah.
But what were you going to say?
Just about sort of almost the reverse of asking, like, when am I going to be promoted? And this is way more. I've seen this way, way more than people asking to be promoted. It's people feeling really bad when they get promoted, like, I really don't deserve this.
Yeah, they feel
I felt it, right? Like when I got called out for a promotion, I was like, oh my God. I felt like, I don't deserve this at all. Like, and I think it's rampant. Right, like I think
it's perfectly natural because now you're saying, "Oh, I'm getting this extra status that I probably can't support, so now I'm going to lose this status in the near future, and that's going to be painful." That's what you're afraid of.
And my take on it was this: two things resonated with me. One was, and this is what I started saying to other people, even though I didn't follow it, which is, look, it's almost, even if you feel like you don't deserve it, it's almost kind of disrespectful
Yeah.
to the instructor to say you don't deserve it,
Yeah.
or to start, you know what I mean? Like, so don't complain because you're sort of disagreeing with the instructor. You know what I mean? You're sort of saying, like, what are you doing? Why are you giving me this? It's like, trust the instructor. They know who you are. Anyone you've promoted, you know their jiu-jitsu.
Just focus on your development. That's all.
And again, back to that other point, who cares? Like, so you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I got this purple belt, but I'm really rolling a little more like a blue belt. Like, so what?
Dan,
like,
I got my black belt in October of 2006, I believe. So that's almost 14 years ago, right? I'm at the point now where I don't even know what people's ranks are on the mat, especially during no-gi. And we're just trying to get better at things. And that is the most freeing, healthy way to look at it. And it's the best way to develop.
Right.
And if you're focused on development, the beauty of that, you won't be focused on losing status. But we're natural. I mean, in the Stone Age times, Dan, if you lived in a village or tribe of like 100 people or whatever it is, if you screwed up and lost status, it was pretty important. You know, it could have serious consequences. If there was a food shortage, you might go down the list on the person who gets the food. Your opportunities to procreate and to pass your genes on to the future might become restricted a little bit. So there was big consequences for losing status back then. There's not that much consequence for it now, right?
Yeah.
You could, I don't know, what can you not recover from in today's society? I mean, we're practically anonymous anyways. Like if you screwed up in Walpole, you could just take it up and move. You could move to Florida or California or something. People won't even know. And you're, you know, so losing status today really doesn't matter that much. Especially in jiu-jitsu. I think people could have some embarrassing experience where they felt like they lost a lot of status in jiu-jitsu. And what they don't realize is 3 weeks from now, not one person on the planet can remember what that experience was.
Yeah. I actually said that a lot, like especially for new people come in and they're always like hemming and apologizing, going, oh, I'm so bad. And I always made this comparison to skiing, how I felt when I first got on the ski slope. And I was like, you know, you barely get off the lift without falling, and you're like, oh, all the experienced skiers must be thinking, oh, like look at this guy. And what you're missing is all the experienced skiers have seen thousands of skiers just like you, and they're paying no attention to these things. And it's the same on the jiu-jitsu mat.
Right.
The new guys come in and they're like, oh, all the guys must think I suck and must think I'm doing everything wrong and I'm making an ass of myself. And it's like, no, the experienced guys have seen 100 just like you, and they're not paying any attention.
Right.
And also all that stuff like status, you always have to prove yourself in jiu-jitsu, right? So if everyone knows sort of your game in jiu-jitsu or your level in jiu-jitsu, you can't hide it, right? So you can't sort of say,
you can't bluff.
Yeah, you can't. If you're like, I think I should be a purple belt. It's like, well, everyone already knows how you roll or how good you are. Like, it doesn't matter. Then you get the belt, and it's like, no, it didn't change. No one thinks you're better now or worse now.
Right.
Like, the only time I'm curious is like no gi and as someone I've never met before, and you sort of feel like I can't tell. I have no idea. Are you like a black belt or are you a white belt? You know what I mean? And then
that might be good information just to frame what you're doing.
Right.
So,
because if nothing else, you can, just have some idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because you can do it in the wrong direction too, where you just lay into someone and then you're like, oh, he has no idea what he's doing. Like, you know.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, that was sort of unnecessary for me to.
Yeah, probably good to know. If you throw on a heel hook and the person's a brand new white belt, they might throw their body, twist their body and hurt themselves somehow or something, you know. But if you knew that, you'd be a little bit more careful maybe, yeah.
But again, it's something you talk about all the time on here, and this sort of, the idea of asking for a promotion, it's not even like it makes you mad that they're asking. It's just that your mindset is in the wrong place. If I
totally agree, yeah.
Because of what you say all the time in here, which you should just be thinking about improving yourself.
Yeah.
And the idea that you're eyeing a belt level.
What happens to me, Dan, is I have some coaches now, and occasionally the coach will come up to me and they go, oh, we should promote so-and-so. And I'm almost always saying, cool your jets. You know, you think you're doing them a big favor, but you're not necessarily doing them a big favor if you're promoting them above their real skill level. So just relax. And they have plenty of focus on their development. Don't focus so much on their promotion.
And again, you reminded me too when you're like, I got my black belt in 2006.
Uh-huh.
And say at the time, I think you were fine with getting a black belt at the time, but if you're like, oh, do I deserve a black belt? It's a good example. It's 14 years later. Like, what is the difference?
Yeah.
If you got that in 2006 or 7 or 5 or 8 or
10.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't.
No difference. Yeah.
Right. Or how about Rory, where he was, there was a point where he was a very, very good blue belt. And it was sort of like, oh, should he be a purple belt? Like, and that, does it matter now? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, time goes by and you get this perspective that I think you have more than anyone in the gym of like all those years of training where you're like, time goes by. And
well, if you get the perspective early, Dan, it really helps you. So my son competes a lot, and the idea is this is all development. We really want to win black belt. He wants to win black belt tournaments. And these blue and purples, it's all great, but it's all preparation for that down the road.
Right.
So, and if you just focus on your development, you could go out and compete and lose every match, but as long as you're developing, sooner or later you're going to start winning a lot of matches, more than you lose, So, focusing on your own development, that's easily the most important thing. And it's probably better to under-promote somebody than to over-promote them, because if you put them in that ego trap, now it may hurt their development, because now they're like, well, I don't want to compete because I'm going to get smashed if I compete. And then, geez, these guys, I'm a purple now, but these blue belts are kicking my ass. Maybe I'll take this week off.
Right.
And you could just chase them out of the gym if you're not careful,
Right.
Yeah.
And do you know what year you got your purple belt?
No idea.
So that's what I'm saying. Like at the time, so people that are like, I deserve a purple belt. It's like, if you get it in a year or a year early, you're like, you're not even going to remember if you stick with it. Yeah. And if you're not going to stick with it, then why do you care when you're getting your purple belt? Like, do what I mean? Like, so.
I do like that about the no-gi. Sometimes you can be in there and people are just developing their game, and we don't even know what anybody's rank is.
Right.
And it's better. Yeah, for sure. All right, what's the next unwritten?
This one, I didn't even realize this was an issue, because I'll say ahead of time, I haven't had an issue with this. They were saying the issue is eye contact. And do you get that they're saying some people do, is there an unspoken rule, do not do too much direct eye contact in that it's creepy. And I'm like, I don't think anyone has ever done that with me.
Never heard that. That's weird. Let's just skip that.
I would rather talk about something else about that, which is actual eye, where you put your eyes, right? Which is for stand-up.
Oh, right.
Right? Like, I have heard this about eye contact. I have heard always to look at the chest, because then you can see legs. And is that accurate? Like, because I noticed that.
Well, I think.
I can't. I always I start looking at. I don't always feel comfortable looking at the chest.
I think you want to vary it. Like, sometimes you look there. Sometimes you do want to look at their face, because their face may give you some information about what they're doing and what they're thinking, how they're feeling, if they're tired.
I feel like I've seen high-level boxers that aren't always looking at the chest. So
no, yeah, they're looking at the face a lot more, actually, and they're seeing that peripherally. Right. You know what I mean? But yeah, they're looking at the face because they're trying to get some ideas, some tells or cues, what's going on. Definitely.
And then I think in jiu-jitsu, I know there's time, like you hear about like the blindfold roll, where you can sort of you're feeling. I don't even know where I look in jiu-jitsu.
Well, when you close your eyes or blindfold, the benefit of that is you're limiting inputs. So with the fewer sensory inputs, you can focus a little bit more on the balance and the feel of things. So I like to do that sometimes, kind of close my eyes and get into just the whole connection with the other player. I think that can be really effective. And again, if you just focus on development, it answers all these things. Then, like staring somebody in the eye, is that helping you develop? If it's helping you develop, do it. If it's not, don't do it. It's so weird. I don't know who some jiu-jitsu nerd came up with that. That's so
Or
goofy.
maybe someone that's like overly paranoid, like people are staring at me. Yeah. It's like no one's staring at you. Because I don't even think where I look. I think it's sure you keep that broad awareness.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Over the whole body, right? Yeah. Especially for jiu-jitsu.
Well, when you have that broad awareness, that actually, we talked about this, it gets you faster into the flow state. It gives you a little bit of relaxation response. Yeah. What's the next one?
Retaliating. So someone goes too hard, and do you teach them a lesson?
Oh, very interesting.
Right?
What do you think? I'll tell you what my thoughts are.
I could, yeah.
The whole thing about retaliating. So somebody is too rough with me, and then I do it back to them. What does that teach them?
It teaches them that that's the norm.
That's the
what you're
thing. Yeah,
supposed
of
to
course.
do. Right.
I try to endure everything with equanimity. So if I get elbowed in the face, actually today I was training with a guy. Man, I got a couple good shots, couple of elbows in the face, and maybe a knee or something. I try to just take it all with grace and equanimity and just focus on the technique. And then I want to structure my jiu-jitsu so that I can't even accidentally get hit like that. That's really my fault. If the guy accidentally elbows me in the face, is that what they're talking about, something like that? Then I
Or
should.
just you feel like he's going too rough on you, though. I think an accident is something different.
I don't know what rough means, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if somebody's about to injure me, like if they start grabbing one finger and bending it, I mean, that's a little
You
inappropriate.
bring up another good point,
Yeah.
which I've always said this, and I used to say this in the gym all the time is, and I'm not someone that rolls super rough. Like I think I roll pretty on the continuum of like not that rough, I think. But I used to always say there shouldn't really be too rough in a jiu-jitsu.
It's about fighting.
fight.
It's
Yeah.
martial arts. I mean,
Yeah. It's not
if
a
the
dance
guy's
class,
doing
so-
something that you don't like, find a way to stop it. Like that's the whole point of it. So I don't even know how I mean, it can happen where sometimes I'll be taking it easy with one of my students, and then they'll just do something idiotic, like they'll do an atomic knee drop onto my cup,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
What do you think?
I guess that was an accident, but maybe you should be a little bit more careful.
Yeah.
But I don't get that mad about it. It depends. Like if a guy drops his knee on my groin, scratches the back of my neck with his fingernails, so it's like, why you can't sense that you're digging your fingernails into the skin of my neck.
Right.
You can't, or then they start digging their fingers in my eye area and face, and it's like your fingers can't tell that it's grabbing part of my face. And sometimes they just get so excited they can't help themselves. What I do is I just try to protect myself, and and then I'll probably end up quickly dominating them, because it's like, well, if I give this guy too much space, he's going to try to pull my eyeball out of my head. So then I'll probably just sweep them and
Right.
smash them a little bit.
But
or
people
whatever.
like this idea of like, well, teach them a lesson, but that's 100% no, I think, because you're showing that's what if you can, that's what you do. Like
Right.
if someone angers you on the mat, you
I guess
pay
as
them
an
back.
instructor, I have to see people acting inappropriately and say, listen, you're at risk of injuring your training partner. So be careful.
You know where this comes up more? Because like I said, in jiu-jitsu, I don't think there's such thing as too rough. Like if someone's got their knee in your belly and that's
don't
part
care
of
about
it.
any of
It's
that.
part of it. Or like,
Dan,
know what I
you
mean?
should see the bruise I have in my inner thigh. I got one of those hellacious bruise. It's like this purple, brown, red, like looks awful. And I think because I was training with somebody and they were digging their elbows into my thighs to open my closed guard, and just to taunt them, I just
You're
didn't
like,
open my
yeah,
guard.
yeah.
And it didn't really even hurt, I don't think. But then I got this incredible contusion from it, which is pretty funny. But you just learn to deal with it. And if you do that, all that shit hurts less and less anyways,
Yeah. You and I think it's more relevant actually though, because in jiu-jitsu I don't even think it's an issue, but stand up, because that has certain limitations where you're not trying to knock someone's head off their shoulders.
Yeah. You can't be
stand-up is-
giving your training partners concussions on a daily basis.
Because I
That's not
think
healthy,
I used to say
yeah.
even before training, like putting on boxing gloves when I was a little kid with my friends, it was always the same thing, right? Like everyone thinks they're getting hit harder
Oh, right.
than they're hitting.
Yeah.
And so you start
Just
escalating
escalates.
and escalating.
Yeah.
And that same thing could happen as an adult in the gym where you're like, you get popped a few times and then you're like, hey, I didn't
Right.
pop him like that. And then
Right.
everyone feels like they need to escalate.
I just tell my students if they're doing something that increases the risk of injury for their training partner, I just point that out and try to educate them. And I think if you do that, everything else works out. But if there's somebody who accidentally does a lot of stuff routinely, they accidentally elbow their training partners in the face too often, then it's like at some point, you have to change the way you're operating. If you have a much higher incident of accidents than everyone else, doesn't matter if you're not doing it intentionally. You got to be more careful. But yeah.
But do you remember the term greenlighting?
Yeah.
No one says that anymore, do they? But
I don't think so.
the idea was the instructor says like all the best. The idea is someone's misbehaving in the gym and all the best people can just beat the crap out of them.
Or they pick one guy that's like one enforcer in the academy and they go, go tune that guy up. Yeah.
You don't really deal with that kind of stuff. Like, who needs that?
All right.
Next one. You mentioned it before, coming to class late.
I think it's fine, but
it's sort of the intent, right? If it's rude, if someone's just like not making any effort and just rolls in
a little bit, or if they are expecting me to present the day's lesson a second time, now that gets rude because now you're getting all the focus of the teacher and the other students are missing out a little bit. So that's a little rude. Yeah. I had these, I'm going to vent a little bit here. These two young women this is many years ago. I think they were from Milton Academy, prestigious private school in Milton. And they were doing their senior project, which was we want to go do some Brazilian Jiu Jitsu as our senior project. So people who aren't familiar with senior project, basically these students for the last half of their senior year, they have no classes. And they just goof off and they do something like this. And they write up a little report and do a presentation. And then that's
They're probably already accepted into a college.
Yeah. Yeah. So these two numbskulls, they go, do you have any books? So I gave them some Gracie, like the history of the Gracies or something. But I want this back. And I think I lent them gis. I was an idiot. I'm like, these people are obviously from wealthy families. And these two numbskulls routinely showed up late, Dan. And then they, what are we doing? And I'm like, ugh. So I'd have to walk them through the lesson again. And they were frivolous. And then they ended up not returning the books that I gave them, not returning the gis, and they just totally blew it off. And, man, they did not represent themselves or Milton Academy well at all. That just left a really bad taste in my mouth.
There's ways to show up. Like, if you kind of come in late and you're like, hey, sorry, like a quick, it's clear, then it's like, all right, he was something kept them, right?
Right.
But if you sort of, swagger in and say, hey, what are we doing? And, being disruptive. And
I think are you being inconsiderate of the other students? That's the only thing that matters, right? If you're being considerate of everybody else, that's fine. Come in whenever you can. That's the way I think. Not all places are like that. Some places you're going to stand at the edge of the mat and they bow you in and all that business. So, yeah.
All right, next one.
Yeah.
Here's a real quick one. Should you wash your belt? Some people think you do not wash your belt.
Well, they're numbskulls. I mean, it's cloth. It contains dirt and bacteria, everything else. Yeah, you have to wash it. Yeah.
Right. And the gi every time.
Every time. Man, we used to have this one student.
So you should probably have two gis, right, if you're training a lot.
You should have multiple gis and should have multiple belts probably too, Dan. And, I would make this announcement, and there was this one guy. I would go, so every time you train, you must wash your gi and not wear it again until it's washed and dried.
Was it a guy that didn't realize you were talking directly to him?
Then he would kind of half raise his hand. He's a very smart guy. I think he went to graduate school for something or other. And he goes, right, except for if you have kind of a light day and you don't sweat that much in it. No. And I'm like, what? No. No exceptions, dude. You're on the mat. You got your sweat and bacteria. You got other people's sweat and bacteria. Even if it's a little, you take that gi and you put it away for a few days or a week. It's this science experiment. It's a petri dish, and all that stuff just colonizes and grows.
It's beyond even regular street clothes, right? It's
far beyond that.
More sweat in it. Plus, you have the mat.
But you got other people's bacteria.
Plus, you're putting your bacteria and sweat onto other people.
It's crazy, and. He did that a couple times, and I was like, no, there's no exceptions to this.
But I could see people just not realizing it about the belt. You don't wash a regular belt.
Right.
So it's worth pointing out.
Okay, wash your belt, people, everybody.
Okay, this is a pretty decent one, and possibly the last one, because the other ones are kind of stupid, I think.
All right.
and it's about asking people to roll. And I do think that's a little unclear sometimes. And they were saying specifically, like, is it awkward, in some gyms for like, can a lower belt ask an upper belt to roll? Can a man ask a woman to roll? And like sometimes it feels weird. Or can a new student ask an experienced student to roll? Can a young student ask an old student? Can a big guy ask a little guy? These kind of things.
Yeah. I think you have to understand the culture. It's not that way in my academy, but some academies are more formal and they don't want lower belts asking higher belts in an open mat situation, I guess, to train. I don't really care about that. I mean, once again, if you're focused on your development, just focus on that. You're not there to beat the upper belts either. You're not there to take down a higher belt. You're there to get better and improve your game, whatever that takes.
Yeah, and I have two minds of it. One is, again, it is supposed to be a martial art, right? Like or some sort of fighting is what you're learning to do. You should be experiencing different young people, old people.
Yeah, maybe. It all depends, Dan, where you are in your development and what your goals are. If you're a competitor or you want to really compete in the sport, then you should probably doing most of your training with people that are around your size and around your level, probably.
I agree, especially if you're smaller and you're a competitor, so since you're a competitor, you're going very hard. You don't really want to do that with someone 100 pounds bigger than you, right? Like
no,
you're
if somebody's 100 pounds heavier than you, your incident of injury is going to go up pretty significantly.
Right.
That's very big.
I don't mind rolling with gigantic guys too because I'm not competing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like I sort of want to feel what that feels like.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I'm also in that mid-size range. Like I'm not the big guy and I'm not the little guy, and so I'm like I kind of want to.
I like it because it makes me. I have to have even sharper technique to protect myself. You know what I mean? It's like you can't just. I was rolling with one of our students who's really good. He's 260. He says he's 265 pounds. So I would say that's his minimum weight if that's what he's telling me. So that's a pretty big guy, considering I'm like, what did I say, 183? Yeah. So he's got like 80 pounds on me. And it's hard to roll with a guy like that, but it's good. Like I can't really make foolish mistakes. I got to protect my neck. I got to do everything properly. You know what I mean? In order to.
One thing I've noticed in jiu-jitsu, and I appreciate it and I like it, but it's that, and it's got to be 10 times worse for you. But even for me, it's like no one gives you a break. Like I thought at some point, no one is like, well, this guy is 20 years older than me and smaller than me, so I'll go easy. Like
I don't think anybody's giving me a break, Dan. I don't know.
And then I think for you as the instructor, like you can have someone come in at 300 pounds and be like, he's a black belt. And they're just like going after. I've seen it happen to you. Guys just like tearing into you with as
so
with
funny
everything they have.
That you say that because years ago, this is years ago, Dan, Nate Ryan, who was one of my teachers, is just a great guy. He runs Mass BJJ in Acton and a great coach and teacher. I think he said it to me years ago. He goes, "Oh, your guys, they don't still go after you, do you? Do they?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then I realized last night, I'm like, "Yeah, they're still going after me." But it makes me better. It's all good. I think they are. I think there may be a couple guys that
maybe if you'd gotten frail and
right, I could pretend to be frail, maybe.
Yeah, and out of shape, then maybe they'd ease off.
I haven't rolled with Tyler in a little bit, but I think he might take it a little bit easy on me. But
you think there's maybe a few guys?
I think there might be a couple guys that are a little nice to me, which is nice. Yeah, not that I need them to be. I want them to be, but then you got to be. If you're there to develop yourself, well, here's the other thing, Dan. If you're there to develop yourself, you're going to do a lot of positional training.
Yeah.
And
your microphone just definitely did something weird. Did you hear that, Dimitri?
I think it might be your headphones, bro.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. All right, then that's fine.
You should be doing a lot of positional training.
Right.
And when you're doing positional training, everything gets equalized. So then a black belt and a purple belt could be equal, If Rory's starting on my back and he's trying to choke me, man, I'm fighting for my life. So, but with that positional training, you can really develop a lot of distinctions, and you can develop mastery over those key positions. And it's more about development. So if you have to tap, you have to tap. But you started in a position anyway.
So this is the flip side of like, who are you allowed to call out? I think I never did this, but I've heard it as a common thing that there's people avoiding other people on the mat.
I think so. Yeah.
And it wasn't sort of my thing to avoid anyone, but like I could see it, right? I could see it.
Here it is.
I even had moments, just to be clear, there's moments where I'm like, oh boy, you know, like
tell me about it.
But I had a sort of side where I'd be like, I'm gonna walk over. And it wasn't like the best guys. It was usually like the certain guys that I'm like, this is just going to be brutal for me.
Yeah.
But like I could roll with Marcelo 20 times in a row because it's just it's not pressure or there's not pressure on me in those rolls.
You mean status pressure?
Yeah. Either status, but also style. Like there's certain guys who I'm like,
oh, they're not going to break your neck.
He's close to my, he's close to my level and he's brutal to roll with. He just he's a brutal roll. He goes very hard. And I would actually try, like, when I felt that, not always, but one thing I would do is I'd go and say, do you want to roll to that person? Because that's what you're in the gym for,
Good
right?
for
like,
you, Dan.
you're in the gym. That's what you're there for, to
Yeah.
try to overcome these things.
Yeah, I think so.
And then, and also, then you're not, you're
Here's
like,
the thing, Dan.
if you call that person out 5 times, then you're like, you don't have that feeling anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to roll with them. You know?
Yeah, I totally agree, Dan. I've been thinking exactly what you're talking about right now. I call it, I was thinking about it's like two sides of a coin. You know, one is sort of the kill or be killed side, and the other is the submit side. So if you look across the mat and you go, oh, Jesus, that's going to be a whole lot of suck. And you go, no, I don't want to do it. And you go, yeah, my neck's bothering me today or something like this. And then you're choosing the submit side of the coin, and it makes you weaker. And it's easier to submit the next time. And it's just not good, right? But when you go on the kill or be killed side of the coin, even if you get crushed, you're going to feel good that you faced that. And then it gets easier to face it again, right?
Right.
It's easier to go into
And again,
it.
there's probably a case like if you have a bad injury that you might not want to roll with.
But that's not what we're talking about. You know, in the heart of hearts,
right.
when somebody looks into their own heart of hearts, they know, am I wimping out or am I facing up, manning up?
Right.
And there's only one road to go. It's the man up road. It's the kill. So I've been thinking a lot about that killer instinct, that kill, and it's kill or be killed. Like when you can get comfortable with, I'm going to go in there and either kill this person, you know, figuratively speaking, metaphorically speaking, or be killed. That's liberating. It's empowering, you know. If you're in there and you're like, yeah, I kind of want to win, but I might lose, and like you're wishy-washy about it, that's not good. And then if you just quit or you just turn away from it,
again,
that's awful, right?
What do you want? Why are you doing it? Like, why are you doing this sport? And no matter, people have a million different reasons, but I think everyone has to face some sort of hardship at some level, right? To overcome some sort of difficulty, whether you're competing or doing it to get in shape or to learn to fight or whatever it is, self-defense. The one thing in common is to overcome something. So you shouldn't
overcome a fear.
Yeah.
I'm doing it to overcome my fear of losing status. And in some ways, my fear of death, I think. People don't think about that. Like, people don't want to think about that they're going to die someday, right? And so I've been thinking about a lot about this lately, Dan. Remember the last scene in the show Sopranos?
Yeah.
And they're in the diner, and then some different people come in the diner, and you don't know what the hell's going on. And then the screen just cuts to blank screen.
Right.
And it holds the blank screen for a moment, right? So one of the interpretations is that Tony got whacked. And that's
the correct interpretation.
Yeah, and that's what dying is. You're sitting there with your family, and then the screen goes blank, and then that's it. And I don't know. That's kind of an appealing notion to me lately. I don't know why, and I'm like, oh, so if I go into a situation and I choose to kill or be killed, then I'm either going to prevail, I'm going to quote-unquote kill, or boom, I get a blank screen. And you know what? I can live with either one of those outcomes. But if I choose the other side of the coin and I submit, and now I'm just in for pain and misery and suffering for the rest of my life while I'm in that kind of submitting side of the coin. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been trying to use that frame even in my training. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go. You can only be one way. Like if you keep flip-flopping and like, oh, I'm going to be strong. Oh, I'm going to be weak here. I'm going to be strong. It's harder to be strong, right? It's almost easier to be strong all the time, right?
Yeah. And again, that's what you're there. I think those are the moments you're there for. The
Yeah.
moment is to think, oh, I don't want to roll with him. And you go, I stood up and I pointed at the person who I was afraid of.
Right. Good
and
for
I
you,
roll with
Dan.
them. And it's not, you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
that's what everyone's there for.
But if you're really, here's the other thing, Dan. If you're there to develop yourself, then those kind of like showdowns, so it's like two gunslingers out in the street, those kind of shrink and they almost go away. Because if you're really focused on developing yourself, you're not there to win or lose. Like I had a student come in, Chad Lightfoot, and he did a private lesson with me. And something happened where I was like, man, I was so tired today. I could barely get out of bed. It was some morning. And he goes, oh, I might be able to beat you today. And I think I might have said it to him. I go, yeah, that's not what this is about, Chad. We're here to help you develop yourself. And maybe I'll develop myself in coaching you here. But you're here to develop your jiu-jitsu and develop yourself. And if you, quote, unquote, beat me, like, that's just the wrong thing to be focusing on. That's not the questions you should be asking yourself, you know? And so if you frame it like that, you don't have those kind of face-offs as much, you know? But you still do a little bit, though. You got to be realistic, right? So, and then here's what I did the other night. We were doing, so I'm with the 260, Kevin Malloy, great student, good guy. And we're doing front headlock, and we're training live. So he's got me in a front headlock, and we're going live. And he's going to try to do whatever, guillotine me or get my back or something. And he's got great technique. And I'm fighting to get out. You know, then I get out. And then we switch, and I get him. And I think I basically did a class of that with him. And I think I had trained a couple times earlier in the day. So now I do that with him. So him and I are going at it. Then I have another class. So in the next class, I'm basically teaching the same class lesson, and now Steve O'Neill is there. So I'm like, all right, now I'm partnered up with him.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's like a mailbox of muscle, right?
Yeah.
I think he's like 245 or something, and he's just powerful, right? So now I'm doing the front headlocks with him. So I do a few of those, and I get out, and he's real good, and he's skilled and powerful and dangerous in the sense of that he could submit you from a lot of different places. But then I did a few rounds, and then I was like, you know what? You know, I did my work here. We're going to do something else because I started to realize I'm starting to get too much wear and tear on my neck with these big behemoths.
I was going to ask if you could move your head the next day.
Exactly, right. So then I found that right path where I wasn't like running from it, but I was, you know, it's like, let's do some other type of jiu-jitsu now. You know what I mean? So,
right.
But I think that's a good lesson, Dan, you had about going into that fear.
Yeah,
that's good.
I think I told you this, but our friend Leo, all around
Yeah.
great guy and black belt at the gym, said to me once where he was naming guys at the gym. You know, there's always a bunch of tough guys on the mat, and he was just saying, "Do you think I always am in the mood to go with him and him and him and him?" He's like, "No, like, you know," he's like, "No, but that's why I come in." He's like, and I think Leo might have even said something like, "The less I feel like coming in, the more I make myself come in." For that same idea, like that's what we're there for, to overcome that kind of
He's
stuff.
mastered that, man, because he is just a warrior in that regard for sure.
Absolutely.
And he's getting better and better now. Holy cow. His jiu-jitsu is better than it's ever been. And it has a lot to do with that attitude of like not shying away from hard stuff. So is that it? Did we cover everything?
That's everything.
That's awesome, Dan. Thank you so much for putting that together. I think we put together a great
now
episode.
Everyone knows the unspoken and unwritten rules. Now
Yeah.
they're spoken and written.
Here's the one rule. Develop yourself. Help
Yeah.
your training partners develop. If you have that as your guiding principle, you can't go wrong. You'll do well. All right, man. So let's wrap it up. Everybody, thank you for listening. Please share and tell your friends about this. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.